So how did I quit my corporate job and start working for myself? Welcome back, you guys. So if you guys are new here, my name is Jasmine Soto and I do lifestyle, business, and a little bit of Spanish videos every now and then. They're actually going to come back on my channel and be more frequent, but I know I haven't recorded for you guys in a minute, and honestly, I have videos recorded, I just haven't uploaded them, and I had an issue with my laptop, so I had to order a whole new laptop, but videos are coming back. Today, I do want to tell you guys a little story time about, how I quit my 9 to 5 and how I was able to work for myself as a full-time entrepreneur and content creator. So I am still, in the beginning stages of my journey of a content creator, but I've actually been an entrepreneur for 1.5 years now, so I've learned a lot. I made a lot of mistakes, and I want to share with you guys, some of my tips, my journey, and how it's been like for me. As you guys know, I do record a lot of YouTube content and a lot of content for my business. So sometimes the hardest part is literally editing the content. And any YouTuber out there knows that the editing takes forever. So like I said, there's going to be more laid back video. I'm going to be just really honest and really transparent and real with. If you guys are a YouTuber, you guys want to collab together, if you guys want to work together, please leave a comment down below and I will reach out to you. But without further ado, let's get into the video. So I'm going to be drinking tea today while telling my story, but go ahead and grab your snacks, grab your glass, whatever you need to drink, go ahead and grab it now so we can get into the video. But for those of you who know that I have been working since the age of 8. So I worked at my dad's restaurant for a really long time. I started working there since I was 8, just helping him, with sitting people down. Even when I was in middle school and high school, I rarely went out because I was always helping my dad at the restaurant, working. I was just in a different kind of childhood. I was working all the time. I was helping my family, and I was raised in a background where my dad really tried to teach us, that you have to learn work ethic. You have to learn how to, work for your own stuff, work for your own material. So that's kind of a little bit of background of why I am the way I am now. Again, our parents really raised us to work hard for everything you have because they came from almost nothing. I know I don't talk about my mom a lot in this channel, and I actually want to have her on a video for you guys because I think it would be really interesting, especially for, my Latinos or the Hispanic community to relate. But, my mom came from practically nothing. She, lived with their family in a really, really poor situation. And luckily, they came over here, and my dad has been doing restaurants since I was born, so 24 years. Again, I started working at the age of 8. I always worked with my dad, and then at the age of, and I always worked sitting people down, being a cashier, or, just helping around the restaurant. And what's crazy is looking back now is I never knew how much, and this is something I always say, but the hustle is either building you or you don't have it at all. And looking back, I even got comments all the time when I was younger, when I was 8, your daughter is so hardworking, she's always been the most hardworking, or, I always got comments like, how are you just so hardworking, I guess, because I think that you can learn it to a certain extent, but you can't learn it to the point that you want to do it. And it's just always been in me. I love working, I love educating people, and I love being the best at what I can do. So anyways, but I always worked as a hostess, as cashier, and then at the age of 14, I actually started working at Kings Island. So I was actually a games associate at Kings Island. So let me know down below if you ever worked at Kings Island. But it is an amusement park in Ohio, for those of you that don't know. So that was technically my first real job. And then from there, I worked so when my dad was trying to get another restaurant, he actually partnered up with one person only in his whole life. And I don't know if I'm getting too much information, or I'm giving too much information, but he partnered with one person his whole life. He doesn't really like to partner with people. He likes to manage his own business. He likes to, run his own business. That's just how he's always done business. But I remember there was one time that he did do a partnership with another owner, and they actually made a Tex-Mex restaurant, and it was really, really good. The idea behind it was fantastic, but as if you guys know my dad, you guys know that Tex-Mex is not really his thing. That's not his specialty. That's not what he's done food in. He's always done, you know, Mexican food for Mexican restaurants, and you guys know exactly what I mean when I say that. So like enchiladas, chimichangas, and you guys know that real street food is different from restaurant Mexican food, so that's why I'm saying that. So when he actually partnered up with this person, they did a Tex-Mex restaurant. It was fantastic. Unfortunately, my dad did not last in that business because it just wasn't for him. But that was my second job. So I worked as a hostess there again. From there, you know, my dad did his own thing, and I actually started working at a couple jobs. So from here, I started working at Chipotle. Let me know down below. I feel like everyone has worked at Chipotle, but let me know down below. But I worked at Chipotle for, I want to say 2 to 3 years, and I actually learned a lot from this job. Like I said, before I started working in corporate, I always worked in the food industry. So I actually learned a lot from working at Chipotle, just in terms of management, in terms of food. If you guys have ever worked at Chipotle, you know exactly what I'm talking about, but they teach you a lot of good skills to have for the future, you know. Even if you don't work there your whole life, even if you don't work there for a very long time, they teach you a lot of valuable skills that you could use. And I can get into a whole nother video on my experience on working at Chipotle, but let me know down below if you want that video. But I actually worked there as, you know, the person that, you know, puts the food in the bowls. I worked there as a cashier. I worked there in the kitchen, so that taught me a lot too. And then from there, that's when I started working at Macy's. So I was going into my last year, or not my last year, I was going into my last year of high school, and I was actually going to college at that point. So at that point, you know, I wanted to have a more stable job that could grant me the access to be able to do homework, or just have more flexibility to do schoolwork, because that was something that I was going to be focusing on. So when I started working at Macy's customer service, that was my next job. So I started working at Macy's customer service. I learned a lot. It was probably one of the jobs that I disliked the most, and I can go into a whole video on that again. But it did teach me a lot of things that, again, I can make so many videos out of this because I just learned so much. But Macy's was actually like my first corporate job. And again, keep in mind, I was still going to college. So I was going to college full time. I was working at Macy's full time. And the way I did it was I was a collections agent. So I would be answering calls. And then, you know, when I had any downtime, that's when I would be doing my homework. So luckily that worked out really, really well for me. And I always say this, if it wasn't for having those corporate jobs, I honestly feel like I wouldn't have been able to graduate college, or I wouldn't have been able to finish, because people don't understand when you're going to college and you're working at the same time, that is a very, very big challenge, because you have so much homework, you have so much stress, and that's only 2 portions of your life. That doesn't count for everything else outside of that, your responsibilities, you know, all that stuff. So that was actually my first corporate job. Like I said, I learned a lot from that job. I got a lot of knowledge, and I have a lot of, you know, stories that I could tell from that job. But for example, like I learned about credit. That's something that, you know, when your parents talk to you like a smidge about, you know, make sure that you're doing this right, make sure that, you know, you don't get into debt, but they never talk about how. They never talk about, you know, especially for my family, especially for, I know, the Hispanic family, it's a little bit harder to communicate with your children, or even communicate with your family members how to do stuff, because they're still learning themselves. So I think that through Macy's, I really learned a lot in terms of the business side. I learned about credit, I learned about credit cards, I learned about interest. And then when I was at Macy's, that's how I was able to actually get my first car. So, or I should say second, because I paid my first one in cash, full, from a bunch of money that I made at Chipotle working overtime. And that's another story. I have a lot of stories, but that's another story. But going back to Macy's. So that was my first corporate job. Like I said, I learned a lot out of it that I even still use for my business till this day. Like customer service skills, how to talk to people on the phone, how to talk to people in a professional, a manner, because obviously you cannot talk to them like, they're your friend. That is something that you do get points off. And if you guys have ever worked at a customer service job, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And then after that, my last job was World Pay. So that was actually my last job that I worked before I quit. And I'm gonna get into the details that you all came for. So how did I quit my corporate job and start working for myself? So that was actually really, really challenging. So right after I left Macy's, I worked at a couple different jobs. And again, I can tell you guys so many stories about, how to apply correctly to the jobs that you actually want, because I know that there were a couple jobs in between Macy's and World Pay that I worked that were completely not for me, and I honestly just didn't know because that was my first time working there. Like I know I worked at a survey company, and that's something that I'll talk about in another video if you guys want more information on. But getting back to the story, so when I was at World Pay, I worked there as a collections agent too. And like I said, I was still going to college full time. So I would go to school in the morning from 8 to 12, and then I would work from 1:30 to 10. And even sometimes after that, I would be going to the gym. And looking back, I'm just like, how did I have the energy to do all this? But that's just to say, when you really want something, you're gonna work hard for it. You're gonna overcome all those obstacles. Like nothing is going to stop you if you really, really want to meet your goals that bad. And I think I was just in that stage where I was just tired of, going from job to job. I was tired of, I was going through a lot. I was going through a lot with, financial loans. I was going through a lot with grants because there were a couple years where I did not get any financial aid. So I had to pay everything out of pocket. And honestly, I was just tired of working those 9 to 5. So I really, really wanted to finish school so I could get a good paying job. And I'll tell you guys later why I put quotation marks on that. But I really wanted to get a good job so I could stop working those 9 to 5 jobs. But getting back to the story, so when I started working at World Pay, which is my last job, I was actually working as a collections agent again. Again, I learned a lot through that job because I learned, a lot of stuff about credit cards, a lot of stuff on banking, a lot of stuff on interest. And again, you need that knowledge to run a good business. So like I said, I was working there. I was working in office for about 2 years, and then the pandemic happened. So when the pandemic happened, I really had to start asking myself, do I want to continue working this 9 to 5 and try to deal with going to school every day, or do I want to take a risk and, just quit and do something for myself? So I want to say that's something that I started thinking about as early as 2021 when the pandemic happened. And actually I should go back a year. It was actually 2020 and when I started thinking about it. And my boyfriend was actually already a full-time entrepreneur. So for me, I think it was really easy for me to learn and pick up just a lot of knowledge being around him. And of course, my dad was an entrepreneur, my mom was an entrepreneur. And looking back, that's another thing that I started questioning myself. I have so many entrepreneurs around me, and I shouldn't say so many, but I have a handful of entrepreneurs around me. And crazy enough, it's like nobody ever pushed me to be an entrepreneur, and it just never entered my mind because my parents were always so focused on, go to school, graduate, which is another video that I can get into. College is not for everyone. So if college isn't for you, or you feel like you don't want to go to college, don't even spend your money. Don't even waste your money going to college. Take a year off, take a semester off, and think about what you truly, truly want. I want to say it was 2020 when I really started thinking about it, like I said. And that whole year I was just, thinking about what is it if I started a business, what would I want to do? So keep in mind, something I haven't talked about through this video is I was working a full-time job. I was going to school full-time, but at the same time, I was so focused on growing my organization. And like I said, that's something that I currently just stopped because I can't do everything. I do need help. And I'm getting to that point where, eventually I do want to have a team. But like I said, I was handling my organization. I was going to school full-time. I was working full-time. So it was really getting a little bit hectic for me to handle everything. And then on top of that, I had a business. So I just kept thinking about it, and it was in the back of my mind. And then in 2020, they did send us home for the pandemic. So being at home, I had a lot more free time to work in my organization, work on school. And I want to say that I started getting comfortable, working from home for a good 6 months. And then 2021 happened. And 2021 happened, and that's what really, really made me question, what am I doing with school? What am I doing with my job? I started questioning if I was even going to school for the right degree. I was questioning if I should even finish school. I was questioning everything. So I got to that point where I was like, okay, I can't keep sitting down and questioning everything. That's just a waste of energy, and that's a waste of time. So instead of thinking about it, I need to actually do something and, just write ideas down. So that's what I started doing. I just started brainstorming a lot. So if you guys remember, I have said this before, but my company actually started out as a translations company. So keep in mind, I was still working at WorldPay. I was still going to school. I was still taking care of my organization. But when 2021 happened, I really started questioning myself on, if I started a business, what would it be called? So that's when I started, taking notes. That's when I started researching, how are other people doing their business for translation companies specifically, how are they delivering their services? And the more I started researching, the more it just made me excited, and the more I wanted to even do it at that point. So I made my logo, I made my Facebook, I made my Instagram, and I was like, you know what? People are always going to judge, and you just have to take a step and have faith in yourself, because at the end of the day, you guys have to think about it like this. Like, before I even started, I think what was holding me back was, what are people going to say? People are going to, think that I'm not going to school anymore. What did I go to school for? And I think most of it was just fear of myself. I was so concerned about not finishing school and having that thought of, did I just go to school for nothing? Did I just waste a bunch of money for nothing? And I think that's what was really scaring me. And so I almost didn't want to start the business. But once I got over that fear, everything else just became so easy. I think after I did my logo and I did my Instagram and Facebook, I got a couple calls from, businesses in the area, in my state, in my city, that wanted me to translate materials for them. And then I realized how much of a field this is really, really needed. And even now, I haven't stopped. That's one thing that I always say. I haven't stopped doing that service. I still offer translation services because it is so needed in the Hispanic community, especially in the US, because a lot of people struggle with that. I grew up around a bunch of family that always had to, ask for help and making doctor's appointments and making appointments with, whoever they needed to speak to, whether it be insurance, whether it be their home, whether it be their cable. Like I said, this is a service that was really, really needed and still is. So when you look at your market research, that really helps you understand, how much is your field needed and where do you come into play to make a difference. So like I said, I started researching, and there wasn't a lot of translation companies that were working for themselves around my area. So I really took advantage of that. And like I said, people already knew me off my organization because of the services I was doing, which was graphic design, logos, content, websites. And I kind of took some of that and started incorporating for my business. And for example, I was creating content at that point. I think it was over the summer, and I was still working on my WorldPay job, and I was constantly making content for my business. And that's what really, really made me think, like, it's not that I didn't have time, it's that I didn't want to make time. And when that really hit me, and I just kind of looked around me and looked like, wow, like I'm doing it. Like I'm going to school, I'm working full time, I'm handling a business, even though even though it's not 40 hours, I'm still working a part-time business for myself with money for myself, and that felt good. And the more I started getting clients, the more I just wanted to keep investing into my business and keep growing it, because like I always say, you only need one client to change your mind. And once I got my first client, that changed everything for me. I was like, if I can get one client, if I can help one client, then I can keep attracting those kind of people that need me. So I did, and slowly by August, I think I was making, to be transparent with you guys, I think by August with my business that I had started, I was making about 1,000 to 2,000 a month. So, and like I said, that was still the beginning stages. So that's when I really had to think about, what I wanted to do. And I had to sit down and, think to myself, is this something that I want to keep continuing and growing, or is this something that I just did for a side? And at that point, I had already, put too much time, energy into it, that I just wanted to keep growing. And so I just never looked back. And going back to my story and how I quit my 9 to 5. So by August, like I said, I was already making a little bit of a stable income, and because of the pandemic, they gave out stimulus checks. So if you guys remember that, they gave out 2 stimulus checks, I believe. And I actually got my first stimulus check, and I got an iPad right away, because 1, I knew it was going to be a business investment, and 2, I knew that it was going to help my business so much in making documents and making content. So it was an asset for my business, and I took the risk. I did, and I spent one of my stimulus checks on that iPad. But looking back, I think that was one of the best things I could have done, because my iPad has made me so much money now that I don't even think about how much it cost me. So that's what I mean, that when you get into business, you really have to take risks for yourself. So again, we got another stimulus check, and the second stimulus check, I saved it. I told myself, this is going to be my savings. If anything happens, that's what I'm going to rely on, just in case my business isn't making the money that I'm making now. So I want to say by September, I got news that my schedule was changing like that. They didn't give me a notice. They didn't give any of us a notice. They just told us, we're changing your hours. My camera shut off, but like I was saying, so we had 30 days to decide if we wanted to adjust to the new schedule. And the new schedule was going to be a morning schedule. And like I said before, I was still in college, so I could not work that morning schedule. So I had to think to myself, do I want to go out and get another job? Do I want to apply to another department? Or do I just want to take a risk and leave? And that is something that I thought about. I'm not going to lie, but I thought about it for weeks. I want to say like about 3 weeks. And then I finally, just decided, what's the worst that could happen? The worst that could happen is it doesn't work, I fail, and I have to get a job. And I think that's what really pushed myself to work so hard, so I could tell myself and I could prove to myself, like, I will never have to work for anybody else ever again. And like I said, I have so many story times that I could talk about the corporate world, but people in the corporate world are nasty. Like, people are so nasty, and I was just so fed up with working with corporate. I was fed up of coming in the office and working for 10-15 hours an hour and doing hella work. Like, I was sick of it. And I was determined to never work a corporate job ever again. So I think that's what really pushed me. And looking back, I'm so glad I took that risk for myself, because it made me want to file and get my LLC, and made me want to push myself to new things that I had never done before. And yeah, you could look at it, what if you fail? What if you get an LLC and then you're not making any money? Anything could happen with the business. There's always going to be risks, and you just have to take a chance and have faith in yourself. And I think I really did. And it helped that I was so determined, and I was just so determined to learn, most of all. and never go back to a corporate job. So I think by September of 2021, I had put in my 2 weeks, and I told them that I was not doing the morning schedule. They did not try to make me stay, and I can get into a future video on why, because we did not end on, I would say, best of terms. But I am so glad that I'm not there anymore. I'm so glad that I don't have to work for anybody else ever again. And like I said, that's how I quit my 9 to 5, is I really just took a risk on myself and quit my job and just put more hours and more time into my business. If you're in college, I would definitely suggest, it's not easy because you're gonna have still homework. And that was something that I struggled with my last year of college, because my last year of college was actually the year that I was working on my business the most. But looking back, I wouldn't have done anything differently because it got me to where I am today. So for that, I am so grateful and thankful because I've learned a lot. So I want to leave you guys off with 3 things that I would definitely suggest to have planned, or just to know before quitting your 9 to 5, because I wish I would have known. But, one of them being, just save money. Have as much as you can saved up before you quit. Like I said, I did pretty well. I did pretty well because I had stimulus. I had, a good amount of money saved up. But you want to try to save as much as you can, because you just never know when you're going to have slow months. And that's just something that you're going to have to get used to as a business. You're going to have slow months, and you just have to learn how to pivot and get back up. My second tip would be, and take your time, don't rush it, but also understand why you're doing it, because that is a lot of reasons that a lot of businesses fail, is because they rush into a business just to make quick money. And I always say this, but this is why I told you guys my history of my work and my background. I felt like I've always had the hustle in me. I've always had to work. I've always had that drive in me. And working for my business, I think, was a piece of cake, because I had so much knowledge that I had learned from jobs. I was so determined. I had the hustle in me. And that's why I say, you can't teach hustle. You either have it in you or you don't. So like I said, just take your time doing your business. It's not a rush. It's going to be a journey, and it's going to be a long journey you're going to be on. So just take your time and really, really do as much research as you can, because the more research you do, the better your business is going to do. Fully understanding what you do, what is it that you provide, and what makes you different from everybody else. And the third tip is just have fun. I think as entrepreneurs, you see all the time on social media, you have to work 24/7, you have to hustle 24/7, and that's not true. That's simply not true. In the beginning stages, you might have to work a little bit more. You might have to challenge yourself. You might have to sacrifice, maybe sleep, or you might have to sacrifice going out with friends. Maybe you have to sacrifice, saving money. Maybe you have to sacrifice explaining to your family, you can't be there all the time. But at the end of the day, once you learn the foundation of your business and you learn how to run it and how to get leads and clients, you should not be working your business 24/7. You should have a good balanced schedule where on what days you're doing what, and you can have a day or two to rest, because rest is so important. And if you're not getting rest, if you're not taking care of yourself, it's going to be really, really hard for you to keep running a business. So I know I just talked all of your guys' heads off, but I really think that it was important for me to tell this story, because you just never know who is looking up to you. You never know who's listening. I never know who's listening. I still get so shocked and surprised when I get comments from you guys telling me like, you guys, you inspire me so much, or, you're so hardworking, because I think that we become so invested in the process. We become so invested in the journey that we forget sometimes like how special we are. So you are special, and you just never know who you're inspiring. So not me getting emotional, but like I said, just keep going, because it's gonna pay off. So I hope you guys learned something. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and let me know down below what other videos do you guys want to see. And without further ado, I will see you in my next video. Like I said, I have a lot of corporate story time videos, so let me know down below if you guys want to see another one. And I hope you learned something from this, and if you did, please let me know down below. But without further ado, don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.